And so it is that we come together tonight with the intention of this training program, which we decided to call Learning to Fly, right? And the thought of learning to fly brings up and conjures this beautiful image, and words like freedom, presence, awareness, motivation come to mind as we kind of pull ourselves into that image of the bird flying in the sky. And if for so many of us who've taken a few moments to look at and watch a bird moving through the currents of the wind and being able to direct and move with the slightest of shifts in their wings in a different course, you know, in a moment's notice, and just feeling that that image of what it is that so many people who are calling us and connecting with us lately are looking for, are ways to find their wings. Like similarly to what you've said, is I'm looking for something that's going to help me to feel connected. And I think at the moment we're looking and living in a world where we seriously or sorely feeling lack of connection, especially in the very presence of connection that we seek as human beings, you know. And so that is a little bit of what inspired the idea of learning to fly. And then what we were looking at was just pulling in some of these shamanic medicine wheel teachings that can speak to how it is that we can start helping and supporting you who are asking to start learning how to unfold and spread those wings. Because if there's anything that I've gained from these teachings and these medicine wheels, is the capacity to spread my wings and create and manifest a beautiful reality that is not perfect by no means, but certainly gives me the opportunity to wake up every morning and go to sleep every night feeling very content and very satisfied with my ability to create my life in a way that works for me, that supports me, and that makes me feel empowered and connected. Mm-hmm. And so with that connection, we wanted to start tonight's teaching off with the theme of awareness. So you can see there that those are some of the words that I've already used in that feeling that we're looking for in what it means to learn to fly, which is part of what has called you here tonight. You've seen somewhere, somehow read a little bit about it, seen some of these words, and have been pulled into saying, yes, I want to be here and I want to learn more about it. Mm. So we thought we'd just start tonight chatting very briefly about some of these words. And so I pull up this slide where we look at those three words: presence, motivation, focus of attention. These are three pieces that we feel and we've pulled are an important part of learning how to hone your awareness, how to move yourself from where it is that you are in your discomforts into places of comfort, where you are in the noise of your head versus places of stillness. Learning to just be okay with life around you and yourself and other people in it. All of these things are about how it is that we can hone our awareness and make a different choice instead of getting caught up in the complaining and the moaning and the groaning of where we're at. We're learning how to assess ourselves and move into a refinement to find our presence, to be present to every moment. That energy, when I say it, I just wonder, what is it that it brings up in you?
Just to be aware of what's going on right now. What am I thinking? What am I feeling? Am I paying attention to that, or am I caught up in my concern for what might happen? Mm-hmm. Or am I caught up in my concern for something repeating itself that I don't want to have happen?
I find myself thinking ahead about all the situations and things that might happen.
That's the futurizing.
Yeah, absolutely. Trying to strategize how it is.
There's also the fear of the past rearing its ugly head again and repeating itself.
Absolutely.
So those two pull us out of presence.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so in that, we want to give you skills and tools that are going to help to pull yourself back into just being present to the moment, instead of trying to push yourself into the future or reminisce about the past and create fear in the moments of what is to come.
I think one of the biggest challenges about presence is it's fleeting. We can try and hang on to it. And the way we usually do is like trying to grasp at water and trying to hold on to a fistful of water. It's not easy to do. The tighter you squeeze, the less water you have in your hand. And the same thing happens with presence. The harder we try and stay present, the more we start worrying about whether we're being present or not, which takes us out of the moment of being present. So it becomes this catch-22, right? And to be present is more of an attitude where you focus on what's happening now, not the what might happen, or not the concerns for anything other than what's really happening now. And it does take discipline to keep our attention on the present.
Which I think speaks to number 2 over there, is that motivation. Is what is it that's motivating you to be pulled into other places, or what is it that's motivating me to stay present, or what's motivating me to fear what may come?
And motivation is what is going to be the carrot on the end of the stick, right? So wherever we turn, we're going to be chasing that carrot. So what is it that we're really seeking to achieve? Is it trying to stave off a disaster because we're afraid that what's showing up in the moment is out of our control? So the motivation can be to control. The motivation can be fear of an unwanted outcome, fear of an outcome that we know is inevitable, and yet are trying to continue to keep at bay. You know, we do everything we can to avoid its eventual outcome or its eventual arrival. And so the motivation can be doing everything we can to avoid, you know, duck, dive, ignore, pretend, distract, all kinds of ways in which motivation can be misused. But if we're present and we listen to what's going on inside, that's when we can start to hear, what is my real motivation here? What is it that I'm trying to achieve? So if I look at myself as an example right now, my motivation is to impart the most clear and concise way that I understand these teachings and what we're sharing here tonight. To be as honest and to be as truthful as I can be, but also to tap into my own understanding from my own experiences of what it means to be present and what it means to touch my real motivation. So every time I sit and teach, one of my primary motivations is always to be the student. But if I sit here and act like the teacher who knows it all, I'm going to be bored to death. And so I'm going to have to find a new motivation. And it could be
rescuing me.
Rescuing you, yeah. Or it could be earning money, that I make this into more of a capitalistic venture where I'm trying to gather up as many faces on the screen as I can, as many people signing up, because that's my motivation. Now that's also going to change how present I am to what I'm actually doing, right?
And your focus of attention is going to be perhaps distracted or misguided if it's not sitting in a way that your heart is feeling fed and satisfied.
Absolutely.
Which which brings up for me the idea of honesty with oneself. So if we're looking to be more aware of our lives and learn to fly and soar and feel freedom, that presence and motivation informs how clear and honest I am with what my focus of intent is, which one of the things you've always taught us about is the what's in it for me.
Right.
How honest can I be with what I am gaining from this situation?
Yes, absolutely. So focus of attention then is making a choice. Whenever we decide we're going to put our attention on something, it's because we made the choice to do so. If all of a sudden there's a loud bang and crash in the room next to us here, I can turn my focus of attention to look at what happened over there if I choose to. Or because I'm staying present and I'm clear about my motivation, I can allow a distraction like a loud noise to just dissipate into the background without having to put my focus of attention there.
I just watched that happen with the cat, where
Exactly.
she came in and tried to create
She
chaos.
was up behind my head here, clawing away at the furniture as she likes to do. But my focus of attention was here on the screen, and to not be distracted. So if we just go back for a second and look at the general way in which we live life versus the more aligned way that we could live life. Presence. Where are you right now? Keep asking yourself, where am I right now? What am I doing right now? Where are my thoughts going?
Where am I coming from right now?
And where do I want to go?
How beautiful.
It's always the where am I come from and where am I going? And we miss out on the what's happening right now. And if I'm present, what's motivating me right now to engage, to participate, to be here now with what's going on, so that I can put my attention there and give it the attention it deserves, or the energy it deserves. How often, I can't think of how often I've been doing a task and I absent-mindedly drift off into some other thoughts and end up hurting myself because I'm not paying attention to what I'm doing. So we have many cases in our lives where we could see how we're out of alignment with these 3 steps. But the more attention we put in making this our primary goal, or our daily task, is to be as aware as we can be of what's going on in each moment, to keep those questions going. What am I feeling? What am I thinking? Why am I thinking that? Why am I feeling that? Where is this taking me?
What's going on here?
Yeah. So this is foundational to all the work we do.
But isn't asking yourself those questions simply distracting you from being present?
Good question. That is a good question. So if you are catching yourself not being present, do you not need to ask yourself the question as a way to bring us back to the now? Okay. When I'm in the now, I'm flowing. I don't need to ask the river is taking me when I've released my grip from the shore, right? It's going to take me to wherever the current is going to flow. That's being present. When I'm not being present, I'm trying to grab onto that shore, and the current is pummeling me at times, trying to get me to let go. That's life. Have you ever noticed that about life, where there are times when your presence is demanded upon? And oftentimes, though, we can get by hanging on to what we think is important and we miss the moment. That's why the questions are there. It's not so much about when you are in presence, it's about when you're not. You were going to add something.
I was going to add something because that question is beautiful, because that's the biggest question we have to face inside of ourselves. There are times when we question on inside that take us into distractions. But then there are also times when we can catch that wave of awareness and we can feel that those questions are taking us in alignment with something greater. And if you go back to the original image that I conjured right in the beginning of this, this teaching, was of the bird in its naturalness, in its power, in its authenticity, flying and gliding and moving within the waves of air, of nothingness. So when we're asking questions and we have to pay attention to the distractions, we need to be able to find that sweet spot in our body, that presence. In fact, I realized as we were talking that I've numbered these words with intention and yet with a different focus of attention. And I would, as you were talking, I was looking at them and saying, actually, this starts with 3, focus of attention. So it goes 3, 2, 1, and then you're in the wave of awareness. If you can be clear on that focus of attention at all times. So if you're sitting doing a task and that task is your focus of attention, you're gonna feel with awareness that sweet spot of whether you focus your attention on what's truly important, or whether the other energy that's coming in, that noise next to you or the cat behind you, is a distraction, or it's something that's going to help feed into that wave that moves you forward.
I think what I think is more clear is to not make it linear.
Right.
You see, we have a habit of making everything linear. It's 1, 2, 3. Or if we get creative, it's 3, 2, 1. You know, then we're thinking outside the box. What if it's 2, 3, 1?
Right.
Or 2, 1, 3? Or 3, 1, 2? Right? So we have options here. And this takes us into another type of teaching that we're definitely not going to touch tonight, but it's something called triangle teachings. So within this path, we use circular knowledge, which is using medicine wheels. And you see the slide there, the awareness wheel. You see I guess that's gold, a golden disc on a charcoal background to make it sound artistic.
There's so much presence there.
I know. Right? But we also do triangle teachings where it's 3 energies and how they interact with one another. And that's what I'm seeing there, is that it's really a triangle teaching.
Yes, yes.
And when you look at a triangle, when you stand at one point, you can choose either of the other 2 points as your next passage or your next movement.
Or your next focus of attention.
Exactly. Yeah. So that is the introduction, I guess.
Yes, but it took you so beautifully into the concepts of circular thinking,
Yes.
which is where we're going to go next, into introducing this awareness wheel.
Yeah. So circular thinking is quite a valuable way of seeing reality. Because if there's one thing that nature teaches us, is that there is no such thing as a straight line. But everything in the universe is circular. We live on a spherical planet. Our sun is spherical. Everything, all astral bodies have that movement. The cycles move in circular ways. Nothing is linear, because linear thinking can trap us very easily into believing that if we haven't done A, we can't get to B, C, and D. And in reality, that's not true. There's all kinds of ways to move around and explore reality from every possible angle. Yeah. But tonight, we want to explore reality through this wheel, the awareness wheel. So one of the things to say about this wheel before we move any further is that awareness is at the core of everything we experience in reality. And one of the ways we sometimes miss out on experiences and think that, oh, well, where was I? I wasn't present when that was happening. We can tap back into it because it's still encoded in our consciousness, in our subconscious. So awareness isn't something that's lost to us if we didn't pick it up while it was happening. Right? And it's quite fascinating to be able to shed our perspective, our single-minded perspective, so that we can see an incident from other perspectives. And what that tends to do is it brings back more awareness of what really happened. I've noticed often where I've talked to, say, a family member about an event that happened many years ago. And I have my perspective on how it happened and my story. And in my story, I think I've got the whole picture. And then I'll sit and talk to, say, my son, and he'll relate the story to me from his perspective. And I'm like, oh my God, I forgot that even happened. Wow, I remember now. And so something that I thought wasn't in my awareness was actually just kind of filed away in some folder, in some drive on my computer that I don't access very often, until my memory was jogged. I was like, oh, there it is. So we're far more aware of reality than we give ourselves credit for. And this wheel is designed to help us develop awareness to a greater degree. And the more aware we are, the more engaged we can be with what's going on in the moment, but also we can direct the course of our lives more creatively, more powerfully, with greater authority, with greater responsibility. So in other words, if you could take this wheel and make it the template for your life, it puts you back in the driver's seat of your own life. It helps you to be the one in charge. So I think that's a powerful wheel to share, to kick off learning to fly.
So in order to teach a wheel, we just use the compass points. And for this purpose of this teaching, we're going to begin down in the south. So here we find the words, be compassionate. Well, the one thing I'm going to start off with is to just share some of the very foundational energy of what we feel and find in the south of the medicine wheel. This is the place where we can touch our hearts. It's the emotional place of the wheel. In our human experience, this is where we find all the ways that we feel or don't feel, all the ways in which we engage with the stories of our childhood, all the ways in which we have lost or we feel like we've lost our trust and our innocence. And on the other side, it's also the place where we find that happy, healthy child, that hopeful child, that one who wants to adventure and explore, the one who knows that feelings are just fleeting, that there's no holding on to anything, even though we try. This is the place where we find the energy of the waters, rejuvenation, movement, aliveness. So throwing in the energy of being compassionate there speaks to a way in which we can find a meeting in our hearts of recognizing that we are doing what we need to do. We are doing the best that we can. Because with the awareness wheel, we need to be able to recognize that we're not only feeling these energies or experiencing or gaining these energies outside of us, but we're also looking inside. And how it is that we can find more compassion with ourselves, more compassion for those historical moments in time where we still feel wounded and pained. And when we feel wounded and in pain, we lose the ability to be fully aware and present to what's happening in the moment.
The other things about being compassionate to ourselves is this is where we learn to open our hearts to our own shortcomings, our own failures, our own mistakes, to not be so hard on ourselves, to know that we're doing the best we can with what we have, and to stop expecting perfection. Perfection is an illusion. The fact that everything is an absolute chaotic mess in nature is perfection. It's the opposite.
Therefore, in my chaotic mess, I am perfection.
Yes, exactly. And
if I can have enough compassion to say that and mean that.
Very true. So this is that healing of our own heart towards ourselves. When we can do that, we actually can extend more self-love to ourselves. It's being able here to look back on what we used to be like and what we're like now. To realize that each moment is an opportunity to learn from. That each opportunity is taking advantage of those opportunities, is a way in which we can grow. It's a way in which we can expand our awareness of ourselves and how we engage with reality. One of the ways that I like to play with this is I like to play chess. And in playing chess, when I used to make a mistake, make a move that wasn't in my favor, I could easily beat myself up about it and think, oh, what an idiot, here I am again, I just made another mistake. And instead, these days, what I do is I kind of chuckle and I say, okay, lesson learned. Next time I'll pay attention more and I'll try it a different way. Doesn't mean I'll have it figured out, but at least I've learned one way not to do it. And that's being compassionate with ourselves, is to learn from our mistakes and to use each mistake as the building block towards the eventual goal we want to achieve, or the success we're trying to gain.
You want to move to the next direction?
Yep.
All right, so we're going to move to...
If you just...
Oh.
That's fine. Oh, I didn't see that you had that. Okay. We move now to one click over that if we were looking at a compass, this would be the southwest of the compass. You want to speak about the southwest a little bit?
Okay. So here in the southwest, it's where we connect to our personal dream and the way in which we make our lives work. It's the place where we find the energy that entices us to be in the process of life experience, as opposed to holding back and looking at life as something scary or something that we shouldn't be doing, or looking at our situations and assessing them and saying, no, I can't do that, instead of opening the doors and just being willing to step through and look into whatever may be there for us.
Absolutely. And that curiosity is something that we can never put down. One thing I like is the minute you try and keep something secret or make it look like you're hiding something from somebody, the first thing that comes up is curiosity. I wonder what's there. Or you go on a road trip and you see a road that leads somewhere interesting. Curiosity comes up. Oh, what's down that road?
Well, that's your side of the story. On my side, many years ago, my story would have been, oh my goodness, that might be too scary. I wouldn't go down there. And one of the beautiful things I've learned by living with you is to be curious and not to let any fears that may be there hold me back from just saying yes to an opportunity.
Yes. And it is through that curiosity that we explore opportunities that we otherwise would ignore or not even be aware existed. You know, it's from curiosity that we discover the more. It's from curiosity that we step beyond what we already know and experience. Gee, let me, imagine having the same food every day, cooked the same way every day. And that one day you wake up and go, maybe I'm going to add a little spice today. Curiosity. Curiosity to know what it'll be like. And that's what leads us to open those doors and push the envelope of the quality of our lives. If we're not curious about life, life becomes that same meal every day. And after a while, it's like having lived the same year over and over and over. And that is not a bird that flies. That is a bird that is grounded and cowering under the branches for fear of stepping out and being seen and spreading its wings. Not much of a life of a bird that way. So being curious is a powerful and a valuable tool that helps us to step into those unknown spaces and not just discover new things, but also to discover what we're really capable of. Just think of those times when you've dared to push into something unknown and discovered that you knew how to do something and you didn't even know was possible. I've seen that countless times.
Ready for the next direction?
Yep.
Okay. So here we find the west of the medicine wheel. And in the west, it's the relationship that we have to our physical body, but also the way in which we engage within our physical life. Here in the west, it's about learning how to listen to the signals and the communications of our bodies.
We look at the word urges. It's one of those words that when I look at it, I ask myself, who came up with that word? It's such a strange looking and sounding word. But
urge.
Yeah. I'm having an urge.
Yeah, that's about right.
When you look up urge in the dictionary, it speaks about a forceful energy, something that compels us. If you think of urges, they feel powerful, they feel strong, that they push us and want us to take an action. Okay?
I think of the term, the urge to bear down when you're about to birth a baby.
And you're told not to.
And that urge is already deep and very powerful.
Yeah. So we often get urges, which are impulses. But because they feel strong, they feel difficult to ignore and to control. Okay? But often our urges are really just distractions from what's going on. An urge is often used as a way to return ourselves back to comfort.
Because it also speaks of something that kind of comes involuntarily, and our patterns of behavior can easily be an urge to go and follow something or to spike my energy or to withdraw and sit quietly.
Yeah. Now, often urges are not there to take care of true need. They are there a way to redirect energy that we're uncomfortable with. Okay? And that's why urges and discomfort go together. Because when we feel uncomfortable, the urge is to correct the discomfort.
Yeah, to find comfort.
Yeah. What is this? The other person?
Yes, it is. Keep going there.
So instead of reacting to the discomfort, because we want to be in that comfort zone, we have to learn how to face the challenge of what is making us uncomfortable. Usually, it's something we don't like because it's pushing our edge. It's challenging us to grow. It's challenging us to see it differently. And if there's one thing I've learned from doing the work on this path for all the years I've been doing it, whenever I want to stay comfortable, it's because I'm afraid to change. It's because I don't want to deal with the challenge of facing something new and doing something a different way. However, when we refuse to change, there's no space for growth. We stay the same. So learning to be okay with our urges and our discomforts is a way of telling us, hang on a second here. If I can just weather this storm for a little while, something different is going to happen. Some change is going to come my way that is actually going to be in support of the growth I'm looking for. Because growth requires change, and change is not always comfortable. Change means you're going to have to let go of something in order to have something else. And that's where our discomfort comes from, because we get comfortable in the known, we get comfortable in our way, in our patterns, our behaviors, and
we get comfortable in our bodies, even though we've pulled muscles and things and we're walking around like this, and we kind of find some kind of homeostasis in it.
Yeah. But if we truly want to free ourselves from the restrictions and the burdens that keep us from soaring, then we're going to have to learn how to see past those discomforts into what is hidden underneath that is preventing me from growing, that I don't want to change.
Yeah, and that's awareness. That's listening to or learning the language of your body.
Yes.
And being able to hear what it has to say to you.
Yeah, that's a very strong point to bring up, is that you'll notice that each one of these directions is just a different aspect of awareness.
Yeah. And the other thing about them are they're an attitude that we can choose to carry into any situation.
Attitude and an action.
Yes. All right, let's move up into the northwest of the wheel. And here in the northwest of the wheel, this is where we find our connection to our sacred image, and the sacred parts inside of us that we know are there. Whether it doesn't matter what kind of a hard time we're going through, there is always this deep connection to something more. And if we don't feel that connection in a way that is comfortable, we yearn for it. We yearn to touch that sacredness. There's that passage that they say from the Bible that we were made in the image and likeness of God. And this is where we find that connection to that source of the great everything within us. And that we can accept and acknowledge that we are just as sacred as the energy that we give to those powers of God or great spirits. It's also the place where we find our patterns. And these are the patterns of behavior, like we've just been sharing. You know, you get yourself into a situation and either you get louder, or you just get quiet, or you leave, or you distract attention with somebody else's story. It's those patterns of behavior that come up for us in this direction that we want to look at as well.
So inside of those patterns, it becomes very easy to get swept away.
Very noisy.
Yes, very noisy in between the ears. So the chatter starts to develop and get stronger, especially when we get triggered. But we also fall into patterns of behavior that are known, that are comfortable, and that keep us stuck in what you could say is a rut, a pattern where we just keep doing the same track over and over again, like that figure eight, you know, that boring race car track. It just loops around and around. And life can feel that way very often, especially when we're triggered by life. And so we look for those patterns that act like anchors. They help us feel secure and safe inside of the chaotic mess that's going around. And I think that one of the things that was so evident during this whole COVID issue that we're having across the world is how quickly people, when they were told they had to stay home, went to those comfortable behaviors first. And then they started to get bored. But inside of that boredom, what we tend to do is look for a new pattern to create. Oh, let me go figure something else out. But if we use stillness as the tool to help us to recognize patterns, it's not trying to replace one with another. It's stopping the world, you could say, and saying, wait a minute, let me take a really quiet look at what's really happening here, instead of a noisy look. When we look with that noise in our heads, all we hear is the chatter of how it should be, what it should look like, why it's not working. Oh my God, we're gonna look like idiots. There's all kinds of different tapes running at the same time inside of our heads, trying to get us to pay attention to what's not working. But what really needs to happen here is to stop it all, turn it all off, and find that stillness. That eye in the center of the hurricane is the image you can have here, where the whole world can be storming and raging and whirling around like crazy. But if you have stillness, then nothing is going to knock you off center, nor are you going to feel insecure. Nor are you going to need to fall into those patterns of comfort that pull you away from whatever is going on that you're uncomfortable with.
And so I'm going to give you a very quick exercise that you can use at any point to start practicing this ability to find stillness, because this stillness was one of the things that I particularly had a very challenging time with. So just close your eyes, put your hands down. You may want to put one hand over your belly and one hand over your heart, or you may just want to rest them in your lap, or may just want to let them fall down to your sides. And just take a deep but slow and gentle breath in through your nose. Welcome the stillness of that breath even as it moves, and let it drop down into your very sitting bones, like a pebble dropping into the stillness of the water. And as you breathe out, just let yourself, there's nobody listening, so let yourself sound. And let more of your lungs release the air and the oxygen, just breathing out a little bit more than you're used to, emptying out and right down to the very bottom of those lungs and clearing. You may even find the need to cough a little, just to really empty and empty and empty. And then in your own timing, a slow and still breath in through the nose, letting it move down the nasal passages, through the throat, down through the heart space, and through all those vital internal organs and down until it rests in your sitting bones. And then let it release with a beautiful sound, a gentle or loud sigh. And release again. Just releasing and emptying out any of that air in your lungs. Many different sounds can be used here, especially if you're on your own and nobody's around listening. You can be as silly as you might want to be and let all that extra air out until you're truly empty and still. And then a third deep and gentle breath in through the nose, letting it move, revitalizing and yet bringing stillness down into the sitting bones. And one last beautiful release of relief and sigh outwards, some noise. Ah. And to just rest in the stillness. And then in that moment, you can come directly back into the full presence of yourself, bringing that stillness back with you. Because all it took was your breath. And so we tend to feel like it's hard work to find these things. And yet all it really takes is a moment of presence and the motivation to breathe deeply in and to have that emptiness inside.
And that whole exercise took approximately 60 seconds. Quick and easy. I like it.
And so, because we are mindful of timing, we move to the north. North, head, mind, thought, overthinking, underthinking, numbing, outthinking.
Judgments, opinions, beliefs.
All the ways in which we use this energy up here above our necks to do and think and be and work and stay productive, as opposed to using the winds to just clear and blow and find our emptiness in our minds.
So being realistic, often a term that gets thrown around, be realistic, you know? Your head's always in the clouds. You're always fantasizing, coming up with cockamamie ideas. You're so unrealistic. So we think that being realistic means being practical. And that's not necessarily so. Being realistic is being able to drop expectation, to drop our attachments, and to see reality as it is at the moment, being real, instead of projecting our idea, our belief on top of what's happening and turning it into something that isn't even there. I've often caught myself where we're having a discussion between ourselves here, and Laurel will say something, and right away, I hear one word that triggers a whole image and idea inside of my head. And I think I have a clear idea of what she's saying. And I might even answer her right away without letting her finish. And she'll say, wait a minute, let me finish. And then when she shares the rest of it, it's like something completely different to what I thought. That's not being realistic, you see. So when we are realistic, we are choosing to take a sober approach, an approach that allows us to take in all angles, all points of view, all perspectives, where we're no longer attached to our single way of seeing it, because the one perspective is unrealistic. It's subjective, not objective. And we get caught up so often, especially in our heads, with subjective thinking. We think we've got it all figured out. We have all the answers. There's very little for us to be informed about, especially when we feel hungry about something, and it makes us completely unrealistic. So to be realistic is to be that empty cup, the open mind, willing to listen, to take things in, to consider them, and to align them to what makes sense to us. Will we ever see the whole picture of everything? Probably not. Because I don't feel that we can be neutral enough inside of ourselves to take on every perspective equally. That there are going to be some perspectives that challenge us and push our buttons.
Perhaps the objective of being a human.
Absolutely true.
Finding our realisticness.
Being human is fun.
And to be realistic, these medicine wheels help us to see many different perspectives. So they are very, very good keys or tools that can be used to help us to be more realistic about things. So we move now to the northeast, sorry, my apologies, the northeast up here. And this is where we find energy. Now, everything is energy, including the food that we ingest and how our bodies choose to deal with it and what leaves our bodies, whether it's through our excrements or whether it's through the energy that we can exert in continuing our day forward. Everything is energy. So this direction of the wheel speaks to a huge way in which we engage with energy, whether we resist it or whether we just surrender to it or whether we feel like we need to push against it. All the ways in which we manage our personal energy is another way of looking at our relationship with energy here.
And one of the most common misuses of energy is how we create stress. How often have I personally taken a thought and pumped it like a balloon full of energy with all my fears and worries, all my resistances and unwillingness to take an action or accept the truth, all the ways in which I stress about something that is completely unnecessary. So learning min-max, and that word is an abbreviation, it's two words really, minimum effort, well, it's a whole term, I should say. What am I saying? So it's min-max means minimum effort for maximum efficiency. That means that we only need to invest as much energy as is necessary for whatever is happening in each moment. When we stress, we are inflating the moment with energy that isn't needed.
And we're aging ourselves.
Absolutely. The elders say that stress ages us prematurely. Often, one of the ways in which we do this the opposite way, we max min. So we give maximum energy with minimum return, is when we are afraid to make a choice or a decision because we want to control the outcome. I see a smile there. If we are going to be in min-max, what that means is we're going to have to learn to be ever more aware of what is really happening now and what is the best choice that is going to give us the greatest return of our investment of energy. So when I think of min-max, I often relate it to finances. If you invest X amount of money into something, your intention is that it's going to give you a return, that there's going to be a gain of interest, right? So when we engage our energy in something, there needs to be a return gain for the investment we made. Now, how often have we engaged in things where we go, that was a complete waste of time. I'll never get that part of my life back. I've heard that often, even in my own head, where I ask, why did I do that? Well, it's often because I wasn't really paying attention to it's like I wasn't paying attention to what was really happening. I was more focused on my worry about what might happen. And so I engaged with whatever was happening with far less of my own presence and interest and desire. And I feel like I didn't get anything out of it. Well, if you're going to do something, if you're going to choose to do anything, make sure that you do it for the right reason. And the right reason is always by asking yourself, what's in it for me? Everything we do, there is always a personal gain from it. And if we can identify that, it allows us to then make better choices or make more sober choices. Where I decide, actually, yeah, I can invest my energy in that because I know that this is where I want to go with it, or this is the kind of return I'd like to receive. Can we guarantee the return? No. Go to your investment broker and say, I want guaranteed return, and see what happens. Not going to happen. But if I am aware of my choices and make choices that suit and support my growth, my expansion, my healing, my desires, my intentions, my dreams. I mean, I'm rhyming off a whole list of different possibilities. And I am going to more consciously make choices with the right amount of energy that are going to lead to the outcome I want.
I think it also speaks to that sweet spot I was talking about earlier in my physical body. This is that sweet spot in energy. It feels like when I have been through an experience, I can look back and just be in full appreciation of how that experience turned out.
Right.
And not just the end result, but being present to the whole process of it.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so let's keep going and let's move on. Now we're going to move into the east of the medicine wheel. So the east of the medicine wheel.
Here's another distraction.
The east of the medicine wheel speaks to the fire and the human spirit that resides within each one of us. The desires we have to, as Lou was just beautifully saying, to grow, to heal, to not only just survive, but to thrive. And so in this direction of the wheel, it's where we need to feed our fire. We want to keep moving and burning new ground, because one thing we know about a fire is once it's burned through an area, there's no going back. Until the regrowth happens, there's no burning in the same place twice. And the human spirit inside of us, probably the part of you that got you to say yes to come and sit and listen to teachings and engage with these kinds of teachings, is the very fire that wants you to move forward and to keep growing and expanding into new spaces and places.
That spirit inside of us is the same as the energy that is in all life. It is that spark of life that ignites everything to want to grow, to want to experience, to want to thrive, and to have the fullest experience of life we can.
To want to let go and just let the flames feed us, or let us feed the flames.
Yeah, absolutely. So letting go is a surrendering to what feels right, not what we think is right, not what we will have
imagine.
Imagine is right, or fantasize is right. But it's more about a feeling, that gut feeling, and learning to trust that gut feeling is something that is both scary and exhilarating at the same time. How often I've experienced where I've just said yes to something because it felt right, even though I haven't thought it through, and then I go, oh my God, what did I say yes to? Right? And yet it turns out to be this amazing journey that leads to all kinds of discoveries and experiences that I otherwise wouldn't have even had.
Well, I think that we had a beautiful experience just recently when we took a trip to the Cape and we let go. We had a very clear intent of what it was that we were down there for, but we just let go. And what a magical experience that unfolded in front of us. Meeting new people and getting to stay with people that we hadn't seen for so many years. Just that letting go opened up so many spaces of new growth and new ideas and new rebirths inside of us, that it was a really beautiful example of this just following that flame that burns.
The thing I see there too is, if we think of fire as being a light source, and without light, it's difficult to see with our physical eyes. Right? And so when we let go, we're able to see the opportunities more clearly. When we don't let go, as you gave the example about our trip to Cape Town, you come up with all kinds of excuses and reasons why you can't.
Right, and that could easily have been the case in that way.
Which is why I brought it up. Yeah. Okay.
All right, so now we move down to the final direction on the outside of the wheel, and this is the southeast. And I jokingly like to refer to this as the self-east, because this is the place where we find ourselves. It's the place where we engage with life from. If we were not human, we would be these little blobs of spirit. But because we're human beings, and no matter where we go, there we are. And this is about this direction of the wheel. It's the place where we truly desire to learn to heal and learn to love ourselves more, and also love ourselves unconditionally. The pieces of the world that we live in today have taken us so far from the idea of selfness as opposed to selfishness. And when we do an act of kindness or take an act of care for ourselves, so often we end up beating ourselves up about the shame or the fear that we are thinking of only ourselves and making ourselves the most important person. And yet it's the very acts of self-care for self that helps us to be more present to life and to the people that we're in relationship with. So this direction of the wheel speaks a lot to how it is that we carry ourselves into the world.
And it's also about our relationship with ourselves. And the attitude and approach we have to what we believe we deserve and don't deserve.
Yes, that's a big one.
Yeah. So accepting people and life as they are, the people includes ourselves.
We always forget about
We're
that.
also a people. So to accept ourselves and others as they are is a powerful place to be able to be, because it allows us to have a place of empathy for others, to not reach out and feel like we have to fix everybody, or to not push people away because their story is too painful and it touches our own pain and we'd rather not go there, right? So we often have a challenge accepting those people who touch our own pain, right? So the focus needs to be on our own self-healing, to accept everybody for their own journey being sacred, to accept that everyone is doing the best they can with what they have. And to not judge them for it isn't easy, especially because we judge ourselves for not being further along than we are. You know? So here, where we are right now, where each of us, those of you on the screen and the two of us on your screen, who we are and where we are right now is the absolute best of us right now. And the only thing that's keeping us from having more of that best of us is that we've got a whole bunch of it stuck in storage.
What a lovely analogy.
It's all stored inside of us. It's not anywhere outside, and it's not waiting to be found in a book. It's waiting for us to look inside. It's waiting for us to peel away those layers that we have laid on top of the true self, our unique natural brilliance, because it has been unsafe to be the fullness of who we are. And that's why each of us is sitting here tonight, listening to what we're saying and us sharing what we're saying, because we're all on that same journey. The journey back to who we really are.
Learning to fly.
Learning to fly. And that brings us to the center of the wheel.
So the center of the wheel speaks to that soul connection that we have. It is the place where we find the seat of our soul. But it's also the place where we find that life force energy that moves through us. You know, even medical doctors can't quite put their finger on the piece of life that runs through a human being's veins and vessels and skin and bone, because when the heart stops pumping or when the spirit leaves the body, there is no more life force energy in that body to animate it as it was before. And so this is the core of who we are. This is at the very center. This speaks to the very deepest parts of how it is that we connect to the other parts of ourselves. And we've just been around this whole wheel and we've spoken most especially of that connection that we have to our emotions, the connections we have to our physical body, the connection of who we are as a mind and a thinking human, the connection we have to our spirit. All of that is animated through the center of the wheel, through our life force energy.
So when we look at these three words, let's explore each one individually. When we become awake, and I'll have to say that all of us here, those of you on the screen and the two of us, we're awake. So we can count that one, we can check that one off, right? But when we wake up, it's when we realize that we've been living in autopilot, that life has just been this journey of following the steps, getting all the ticks and the checkbox right, and following a dream that isn't even one that we ever dreamt for ourselves. It's what we feel is expected. And we just fit in and conform to life, to society, to reality. And we're back to what I said earlier about repeating the same year over and over again. When we wake up, we realize that's not how we want to live, that we need more from life. We need life to be interesting. We need life to be magical. We need life to be mysterious. We need life to be an adventure. Otherwise, what's the point? You know, you might as well just read the first page of the book and close it. You know the rest of the story. It's going to keep repeating page after page. What a boring book. Once we wake up, we start to become aware. The first thing we become aware of is ourselves, our behaviors, our thoughts, our patterns, our beliefs, our urges, our discomforts,
our curiosities or our no-goes,
our fears. You know, we start to become aware of parts of ourselves that we've not usually put much attention on, right? And we start exploring other opportunities, other avenues, other paths, other ideas, other philosophies. We start questioning life. We start challenging life because we are aware that if we don't, we're going to fall back asleep. And the last thing you want to do when you wake up is just fall back asleep. So that awareness is a lifelong challenge. Our ability to become ever more aware feels like an infinite journey, that there is more and more and more that we become aware of. You know, it's often said that the explorers of old discovered things, right? So when, was his name Van Riebeck? Came around the Cape of Good Hope and landed here in South Africa, he said, I discovered a new land. Meanwhile, the people who were already living there said, what do you mean you discovered it? We were already here, right? So we can't really, it's not so much about discovery as it is about becoming aware of the existence of something. Everything already exists. Everything goes beyond the construct of time. Time is just something that helps us find a reference point in a moment. It helps us to come together at certain intervals with certain agreements, right? We all came together at a certain time tonight so that we knew where to meet and when. Otherwise, I say, yeah, okay, I'll see you for Living Clean. And then we don't know when, right? So time is a valuable tool, okay? But inside of awareness, time is unnecessary. And so awareness helps us to expand beyond the limitations of anything that obstructs us, hinders us, and prevents us from being free. The more aware we become, the more we find the ability to be motivated, to have our focus of attention. So
alertness.
And alertness, yes. Well, alertness is coming up. I wasn't there yet.
Sorry.
Okay. So alertness is having enough awareness that you can see the way energy is moving and you can make wiser choices. You can make choices that are going to put you back into min-max, that are going to keep you moving around this wheel where you can let go, you can accept, you can be compassionate, have curiosity, and be okay with what's going on inside you, still staying in stillness and being realistic. Being alert is recognizing whatever is happening now and knowing where it's going to lead to next. Not as a prediction
or a control,
but more just recognizing how energy moves and how it interacts with other things and with ourselves, right? I've often caught myself where someone said something that would normally upset me and send me down some negative spiral, or maybe cause me to react with anger, right? And there is a moment where I can pause and I have alertness to say to myself, if I react this way, I know it's going to lead me down this chain of reactions that I've been to so many times, and it doesn't really lead to anything I want to, anything constructive or productive that I want to be there. I've been there so many times, and I don't really need to revisit it again. So having alertness can help us catch our triggers and not become victims to the things we would normally be victims to in the past. So it's a powerful tool that can only come, though, through developing enough awareness of what's really happening to us in the moment. That's why that presence, motivation, and focus of attention that we introduced the whole teaching with earlier are powerful ways of being. And these three elements of being awake, aware, and alert go hand in hand with them.
Okay. We move to the next slide, Sharon. That really does just bring the teaching to its completion. And we've given you a ceremony here that you can see the flowering tree. We're going to send this out to you by email, so you'll have a copy of it. But you'll see that this ceremony is really to establish and open a channel of communication so that you can start becoming more receptive to that inner wisdom and trust that you have inside. But also, it's a ceremony to help you to connect more to your awareness. And it's a very simple ceremony where you connect to a tree. It's written out there very clearly and cleanly. And what you can do, we've put in the addition of you taking some tobacco with you as an offering back to the tree. So tobacco, within our teachings, we do share what are called the twisted hair teachings. And within these teachings, tobacco from the natives was a plant that was honored and revered and was used to connect to the ancestors. And so when we use tobacco, we often use it in our ceremonies just to leave as an offering of gratitude for the connection that we've experienced and for the teachings that have come within the ceremony. And so this ceremony speaks to you going to find a tree. And it says there in the instructions that you want to look for a tree that you're attracted to and that is willing to work with you. Now, don't let that set you into resistance to the ceremony. Your tree's not going to jump out and say, here I am, come and work with me.
Or it might.
Or it might, you never know. Well, it might. This is an opportunity for you to learn to trust your senses, because any tree will be willing to work with you. But you want to be able to become aware of the tree that is most attractive for you to work with in that moment. And the tree people are beautiful teachers to us of how it is that we can remain grounded and draw from the earth, Grandmother Earth, all the nutrients and nourishment that we need to be stable and strong, and that we can build that trunk and that bridge between that so below energy and the as above, as the tree stretches her boughs or his boughs up towards Grandfather Sun and Grandfather Sky. And so the tree people teach us how to be able to stretch beyond and into our beauty and our majesty and our fullness while remaining grounded and being fully present as the human beings that we are. Okay. So as we work with the tree, it's really about asking the tree to be a teacher to us. And so once you find your tree, you're just going to work around the 4 directions of the medicine wheel, the south, the north, the west, and the east. And you'll see that there are questions there that you're going to pose to yourself and to the tree and to all the energies of the south. And there is a moment where you're going to receive whatever it is that comes, even if that's nothing. You have an opportunity in the ceremony to trust, to open your senses and to learn about how it is that you uniquely perceive and open awareness to the world around you.
It could be a feeling, a sensation, a thought, an idea, a message, an image. It could be anything. It could be a sound.
It could. So dare to be surprised and pull that southwest energy of being curious into the ceremony. You want to take a journal or something that you may want to just jot down things, or you may just want to doodle even. Don't stress about what the answers are going to look like. And so once you just come to completion and you feel that the ceremony is complete, as I was saying, you offer a pinch of tobacco to the tree. If you don't have tobacco and you don't really want to work with that, you're welcome to just sit and say a prayer to the tree at the end of the ceremony. Okay?
One of the things I want to add about this ceremony is it can be used as a daily ritual or a daily exercise. It only takes a few minutes to do it. It can be done within 5 minutes, really. Yes. Or it can take a longer
5 hours.
Time. Yeah, it really is up to you and how you want to design the ceremony. But the thing I find so powerful about this ceremony is that every time you do it, you'll get different answers. And those different answers help. They're like tiny little puzzle pieces in a puzzle that has millions of pieces, or maybe billions of pieces, because we are so multifaceted, so unique, that and so grand beyond the comprehension of our limited imagination, that there are so many pieces that we can't ever find them all. So the answers
something new.
Will add more pieces to the puzzle of who you are, knowing that there's always going to be space for more pieces to add. Yeah.
And so we bring the teaching to completion tonight, and we hope that this teaching has given you a little bit more freedom to start unraveling those wings and stretching them out and checking out what kind of feathers you may have, letting them push through and grow into the beautiful wings that we're going to continue to play around with as we keep moving through this teaching.
Yeah.